All right, I'm back. I had to deal with some family stuff real quick, just making sure they knew I was like in here. Um, I think one of the pages that grips me the most is page 29, where this idea about lying, about the way society is now, that we progressed, that we view certain forms of domination and authority of our society as natural. For example, she talks about one, page 29, lying takes the form of mass media, creating the myth that the feminist movement has completely transformed society, so much that the politics of patriarchal power have been inverted, and that men, particularly white men, have, just like emasculated black men, have become the victims of dominating women. And so it goes, all men must pull together to support and reaffirm patriarchal domination. She also brings in a great example of when people talk about capitalism and how this idea that it is natural because capitalism requires a surplus of lower paid, cheap labor in order to be sufficient, where it's just a natural thing for people to suffer while others succeed. And I see this in the classroom when we talk about really, they call them political subjects, even though the more I understand about literally what the word politics means, it is, polis, it is people, it is community, it is literally how we live our life. That Hooks makes a great comment that our most vocal students about in our discussions are white students. It's not our black students, because our white students have this confidence of they know how the world works, and that other students from more marginalized groups are perhaps more scared to speak up, because to speak up is seen as like a form of aggression against the dominant authority that is present in society. So it scares me of how telling this book is of the way things are now, where I see the rise of white supremacy, particularly how not really how it's changed, but how it's always been there, but we're more so kind of, I guess we've always been aware of the white supremacy present in institutions such as the police, to be a little more up to date on current events, how it's always been there. We are just now understanding the effect it has on marginalized communities, but people, authority, to protect authority, we argue that, that's just the way it is. That's the way things are, that it's natural. It's as though it's a natural thing for police to choose to, between de-escalating a conflict and killing someone, they quickly go towards killing someone, and it's seen as natural. Because, as Hooks puts it, people are commodified in our banking system of education, where people are things, students are things, to perform, to listen to the teacher, and if you are not performing, if you are not listening, you are directly rebelling against that system. And so I think this book is definitely one of the most aggressive and straightforward, and aggressive in a good way. I mean aggressive in the best way possible. Forward of looking at our current system of how we do things and going, our entire job as teachers should be to transgress, to move past, to not try and shy away from these subjects that people view as, trying to be divisive. We're not trying to be divisive when we talk about modern day events. We are simply investigating how our system, how our economy of thinking, what it's based upon, how perhaps we can change that. Viewing our right, the privilege we have to have, our right to have an education, viewing that as a means to I can't find a better word than transgress right now. And I guess a quote that still sticks with me is that how diversity in our schools has been so dumbed down. It's not truly progressive. In fact, I've seen stuff like this where, for Pride Month, companies will post a bunch of rainbow flags and then go, happy Pride. And people view that as progressivism, and I kind of view that as something like progressivism in a can, almost. It's cheap. Basically, she pulls in a quote from Peter McLaren that says, diversity that somehow constitutes itself as a harmonious ensemble of benign cultural spheres is a conservative and liberal model of multiculturalism that, in my mind, deserves to be jettisoned, love that word, because when we try to make culture an undisturbed space of harmony and agreement where social relations exist within cultural forms of uninterrupted records, we subscribe to a form of social amnesia in which we forget that all knowledge is forged in histories that are played out in the field of social antagonisms. We can't shy away from what has happened in the past, or the blockades that are still in our system from events such as, slavery lasting for 400 years, sharecropping, redlining, basically all other forms of oppression on marginalized groups. If we sit here and kind of, think that putting our hands together and singing Kumbaya and acting as if everything is good is going to fix everything, it's not. It's kind of like putting duct tape over a crack in the wall. You have not fixed the crack, you have covered up the crack. We as teachers need to investigate these issues with our students in a meaningful way that builds community without full on putting our authority down and saying that I'm right and you should listen to me. It's not lecture, it's dialogue, where I think we really learn how to transgress in society. And Cooks brings up the example of when she taught that one student who wanted to join a fraternity, and he joined the fraternity even though they both had different ideas of the misogynistic structure put in place by fraternities and how it impacts its members. The student still had a meaningful experience of being in dialogue with her teacher and his teacher and learning, this is what's wrong with fraternities. I'm glad I know now. So I'm definitely keeping this. I think I'm probably going to buy a hardcover paperback copy to pull from, because I love Hook's language. I love the way she really deals with these topics in a very mature but direct and straightforward way that isn't too convoluted. So that's my discussion for the week. Thank you for tuning in.